If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
This is the Cats Roundtable with John Catsimatidis.
Everywhere around the world, they come to America. Every time that flag's unfurled, they come to America.
Good morning, America. This is the Cats Roundtable. John Catsimatidis here. We have Congressman Barney Frank, the famous Dodd-Frank bill, and how is the banking industry going? Senator Tommy Tuberville, Chairman Joe Groter of the Republican National Committee, and what is he going to do to win in 2026? Dr. Peter Mikolos, live long and prosper. Gary Krupp, on what is the real philosophy of the Muslim religion. Premier Doug Ford from Ontario, and we have Senator James Lankford from Oklahoma. And let's start off for the mayor's race in New York. It's become a national issue. And with us today is Governor Andrew Cuomo. And with us this morning is Governor Andrew Cuomo. And Governor, that was some debate. How do you think everything turned out?
Look, the debates, they can be a little frustrating, John, right? Because you get 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 30 seconds, and you really don't get get into any depth. But I think Zohran Mamdani, it became clear that there is no there with Zohran. He's got great slogans. It all sounds great. There's no there. It's been tried before. It doesn't work. Moderators pointed out there's no way to fund it because the way he wants to fund everything is by a tremendous tax increase. And the governor and the legislature already said they won't pass that tax increase.
It goes back to the fact that, Governor, this is a Democratic city. The 5 boroughs is what, 7-1 or 8-1 Democratic?
Yeah.
But you're the real Democrat. I mean, I look at as Mamdani has been being a socialist, and he got the nomination by accident because of this ranked choice voting.
Yeah, John, what people have to realize is basically you have a civil war going on in the Democratic Party. You have this far left fringe group called the Democratic Socialists, who are a far left radical extremist group. It's AOC. It's Bernie Sanders, it's the Squad, and it's Zohran Mamdani. They are socialists. In the full meaning of socialism, government should control the means of production. No private ownership of land. You can't own land. Defund the police. That's who they are. And they are trying to take over the Democratic Party, and they have been for years. I am a Democrat. My father was a Democrat. So it's the traditional Democrats versus this far-left DSA. The far-left DSA is very strong in primaries, and that's how we won in the primary. But there is not a socialist economy that has worked anywhere, not in Venezuela, not in Cuba. The new mayor in Chicago, they elected a socialist. It's a disaster. We know socialism doesn't work, especially doesn't work in New York City, which is the financial capital. You're going to defund the police, disarm the police. We have a crime problem. What are you talking about? So it's all political theater. And what came out in the debate, his proposals are all former Bill de Blasio proposals. And they all failed. Freeze the rent was de Blasio. It failed. Close Rikers Island was de Blasio. It failed. Getting rid of gifted and talented programs. Legalizing prostitution. That's what we need right now with what's going on. That's de Blasio, and that's Mondami. And also, de Blasio had zero management experience, and he was a disaster. This kid has less management experience. He only passed 3 bills. Mayor is a real management job. You're responsible for 300,000 employees, 8.5 million lives. It's not about political rhetoric and theater. This is about keeping people safe and growing an economy and managing an education system. By the way, he's never been at 50% in the polls, so New Yorkers get it. The problem is Curtis Sliwa is a spoiler in the race. And a vote for Curtis Sliwa is really a vote for Zoran Mondami.
Governor, I understand he was attacking you more so than Mondami at the debate. Is there a reason for that?
Look, it is what it is, John, and there is no mistake here. There is no misconstruction. Curtis cannot win. 70% of the voters are Democrat. Curtis has run 1,000 times. He's never come close. There's no poll that shows him close. Put aside the fact that does he have the background or the credibility or the qualifications. He just can't win. What he can do is take enough votes to make Zoran the mayor, and he's going to make Zoran the mayor. And all this stuff that I hear on your radio station, oh, Curtis loves New York, Curtis loves New York. You listen to Sid Rosenberg, Curtis loves New York. No, he doesn't. He loves Curtis. Because if it was about New York, he would say, you know what? For the good of New York, I'm going to step out because this Zoran is an existential threat. And you know who did that? Mayor Adams, who was the sitting mayor, who said, I'm going to step out of the race, and the end of the game has to be that we beat this guy. And Mayor Adams put his ego aside. Curtis won't. Curtis is saying, I love Curtis more than I love New York. And he should be called out for it. Zoran becomes mayor, it's because of Curtis Sliwa, period.
I agree with you there. I mean, and by the way, at the Al Smith dinner on Thursday night during the debate, Mayor Eric Adams was there, got a big applause for doing the right thing and stepping aside if he didn't think he didn't want to be a spoiler.
Well, Mayor Adams, that's going to be his legacy. His legacy is forget everything else. His legacy is going to be he loved the city. He stepped aside because he wanted to stop a socialist from destroying New York. And what I say to your listeners and Republican listeners, Fiorello LaGuardia, there's no Democratic or Republican way to pick up the garbage. I know how to make government work. I am competent. I have been governor for 11 years. The state budget is twice what the city is. Nobody accomplished what I accomplished for New York City. You go look at LaGuardia Airport, Kennedy Airport, Kosciuszko Bridge, 2nd Avenue Subway, Long Island 3rd Track, cut taxes for the middle class, cut estate taxes, cut manufacturing taxes. You need someone who can get things done. We're electing a mayor. There's not a lot of ideology here. It's operational. It's management. Who were the good mayors? The managers. Bloomberg, not a politician, but a manager. I manage. I'm former HUD secretary. I know how to build housing. I built it all across the nation. Well, I'm a Democrat. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. The Republicans want the city run well. You want 5,000 more cops. You want a public education system that works. You want somebody to clean up the city. You want someone to bring in a quality staff. I will do that.
Governor, we're almost out of time, but I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you. And, John, I want to say to your Republican listeners, vote like a New Yorker. Don't vote like a Republican. Vote for New York.
I agree. I'll see you at the debate on Wednesday, and good luck at that debate, and we'll talk again. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Congressman Barney Frank, and he is the famous congressman where originally all the banking bills were done with Dodd-Frank. Barney Frank, you were on the board of Signature Bank, and Signature Bank was put out of business, and there was a lot of circumstances that came along with it.
What seems to be clear, the biggest difference on banking and finance policy between Donald Trump and his predecessors has to do with crypto. The Trump administration and the president personally have embraced crypto. The Biden administration was sort of anti-crypto, especially the head of the SEC. And one of the problems, ironically, that Signature had was we were being successful in dealing with crypto. We did not invest in cryptocurrency. We weren't lending cryptocurrency. But we set up one of the earliest places where two customers of ours who were doing other banking business in other currencies but wanted to deal with each other, we facilitated their dealing with each other in crypto. And it was a successful business. It didn't put us at risk. And I think the anti-crypto views of the Biden administration were a major factor there. I think people at the FDIC and especially did not want there to be an example of a successful utilization and monetization of crypto.
So you feel it was more of the crypto situation than anything else?
Yes, and I think that's been vindicated. And if you look at, John, as I know you do, that's the biggest change between the Biden and Trump administration, or the Trump and Obama administrations, about, and even the Trump and Trump administrations. It's this embrace of crypto, as opposed to the opposition of crypto that you saw under Biden.
Now, the last time we talked, you were also concerned, or you pointed out that New York State had given Signature Bank a clean card of approval the previous few weeks.
Not just New York State, all the bank regulators. They have a rating system, and we were just a couple of weeks before the closure. We were rated as very satisfactory, not perfect, but almost no bank is perfect. So as a director in particular, I'm somewhat surprised that these agencies, and they get together and they give you a rating. And our rating was very high. And so they tell us this is your rating at a board meeting, and then 2 weeks later decide to close us.
And they also closed the bank in San Francisco, and they closed Signature Bank, and they also closed First Republic.
Yes.
What did they do wrong?
If you look at what happened to the loan book of Signature after they closed us, and it was transferred to other institutions, it performed very well. One of the problems, again, was people at the FDIC and the former head particularly did not understand an important distinction between commercial and residential lending. Commercial lending, because of the pandemic, was troubled because people were closing down offices because you could work from home. But what they didn't apparently understand, although it seems to be pretty clear, well, you can work from home, you can't live at work. And so what was happening was loans to residential, multifamily, large buildings were doing well. They were not defaulting. Loans to commercial were. Signature Bank was the largest residential lender. And so when you look at our commercial portfolio, it was very big. And that was troubling him if you don't look behind the top line. And if you look and you see that our loan book was very much residential, much more than almost anybody else. And as a result, we did not have the failures and defaults that other banks had. We had critics from both the right and the left, more from the right, than the left, and I think we've been vindicated. I think two things. First of all, in the now 15 years since that became law, we have not had a major bank crisis, even though we went through some tough times. And on the other hand, the banking industry has thrived. There were people who said, oh, we didn't do enough, there's going to be more crisis. There were people who said, oh, you do too much, you're shutting down the financing of America. 15 years later, both of those are clearly not true. And by the way, one proof of that is, with the exception of the Consumer Protection Board, which the conservatives have always disliked, and I disagree with them, but the Republicans, during their tenure, have made no serious effort to undo the major parts of Dodd-Frank. It is essentially intact, and as I said, has worked very well. And it's, you hear still a lot of controversy about other things done by Obama and Biden, but you do not see much controversy about Dodd-Frank. The Congress did, under Biden, under Trump, adopt a modification that I thought was useful in some parts. I didn't agree with others, but that left the important parts, almost all the parts of Dodd-Frank in existence. So, yeah, I'd close with that.
Well, Congressman Barney Frank, thank you for your service to our country and continue to speak out for our country. And you did a great job. Thank you so much. And let's catch up again real soon. Whenever you're in New York, we'll certainly buy you lunch or dinner.
Okay, I'll take dinner.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. With us is Senator Tuberville. Senator, well, where do you want to start?
Our country's government is shut down. That's a good thing in some ways, and it's a bad thing in some ways because some people are not getting paid. President Trump's trying to find a way to fund the military because we've been now shut down for going on 3 weeks. We got a lot going. We voted twice this past week to open the government back up. The Democrats voted it down. They want to spend $1.5 trillion more taxpayer dollars that we don't have. We're already $2 trillion over our budget every year that the American taxpayers send to Washington, D.C. to spend. So it's been a disaster other than what President Trump's been able to do basically by himself.
What happens now with the last frontier? The last frontier looks like it's going to be Ukraine and Russia.
Well, first of all, just a little bit about what President Trump did over in Israel. He got the hostages out. He got the people back into the country that were still alive. Unfortunately, we're still missing some that didn't make it. They were brutalized by Hamas. A lot of that water's underneath the bridge now. That's all happened. Now Israel has got to figure out, what they want to do. But it's all happened because President Trump. There was, leadership has to start somewhere. We had none under the Biden administration, but President Trump stepped in and said, we're going to get this done. We're going to get the hostages home. Now we're on to Russia and Ukraine. That war needs to end. The problem is the Biden administration let Vladimir Putin have so much success in 2 years before President Trump got in that President Trump was basically, in football terms, he was down 35-0, and he's had to get everybody back on their feet, all the players back on their feet, and said, "Listen, we're going to get this thing over with." But again, Russia and Putin they have been winning this war pretty much the entire time, other than I'd say the first 3 or 4 months. But it's going to be hard. I mean, he's going to have to pull off another Israel-Hamas peace talks to get this done. But at the end of the day, the American taxpayer don't deserve to have to pay for another war, and especially in the eastern part of Europe. When Europe needs to take care of their own business and NATO needs to jump in there, which they are, I'd bet all my chips on President Trump getting this thing over with.
The other day we talked about the Sharia law. You have any other gut feelings on that? Yeah,
it's out of control. We're seeing a huge wave of radical talk by the radical Islamic terrorists. across this country. Now, don't get me wrong. If you want to peacefully practice your religion in this country, John, that's fine. That's what this country is about. We have all kind of religions, but you have no right to violate our laws to come in and push your own religion. That's not acceptable of the American people and our culture and our Constitution. So, and then, I've got a Sharia-free American Act that would keep all foreign nationals advocating for Sharia law, which is basically death to America, to keep them totally out of our country. We don't want you here. If you want to preach death to America, do it somewhere else, but you're not going to do it within our borders. So that's called the Sharia-free American Act. We're putting it on the floor of the Senate here pretty soon. But, John, this is getting out of control. The way they treat women, the way they have marriages with 6-year-old kids, I mean, is absolutely insane if we're going to allow this type of culture in our country, because we're a Judeo-Christian country. That's where we were built. That was the basics of everything that we've hung our hat on for years and years, and we're not going to change to some other religion that basically says death to our religions and our people in this country.
Now, I understand there's 85 million green card holders in our country. What do we do? I mean, is that going to be a big controversy in the future?
Yeah, it's going to be a huge controversy because, again, you've let the Democrats bring in all these people from all these Middle Eastern countries. Obama did it. Joe Biden did it. We have been overrun by situations that are out of control on the streets of especially the blue cities of New York and Chicago and Detroit. You got to be able to get along with each other. And for some reason, this group of people that go by Sharia law, they don't want to assimilate with Americans. They want to do their own thing, and that's not going to happen. We are all going to go by the constitutions and the same laws. You can have a different culture all you want, but we have to make sure we have people that love this country, here for the right reasons, and try to get along with each other. But the bill that I've got would deport anybody in the United States under false pretense. Okay, and so we've got to come up with a better immigration laws, but we know the difference between right and wrong. And this is good versus evil here. We're not going to let people come here that's going to preach evil and preach death to America, because this is the country that our forefathers built, and they didn't build it to be torn down by a group of people that should go back to their own country and be on their own culture if they want to preach that the different types of laws.
Senator Tuberville, thank you for coming on. We'll see you again real soon.
Thank you. God bless you.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us is Joe Gruders, and he is the chairman of the Republican National Committee. Mr. Chairman, did you realize how deep the swamp is in Washington?
First off, thanks so much for having me on. And yes, the swamp is thick. But listen, we got a president that's committed his life to changing the world. The first 250 days in this administration has been nothing less than remarkable and amazing. And so he's cleaning it up day by day, and it's just a great thing to be a part of it.
Tell me the big challenges you face. The number one thing is, voter integrity. Are we making progress?
100%. We've come a long way from where we were in 2020. As a matter of fact, the president and others put me in charge of the election integrity program for the entire country after the 2020 cycle. And it was in order to make sure what happened in the 2020 cycle never happens again. The former chairman, Michael Whatley, has done an amazing job of getting us ready. And what you saw in the last cycle is you saw a lot of the progress that we've made. It's not complete. We're not done. As a matter of fact, we have 92 active lawsuits across the country, red states, blue states, purple states. We're fighting on all fronts to make sure illegals can't vote, to make sure we have equal access for poll watchers, to make sure we have voter integrity issues, identification issues, on and on and on. It never ends. We are taking the battle to the Democratic states, but we're not facing the DNC. What we're facing is these left-wing extremist groups that are filing all these lawsuits, and so we're on the defensive in some, but we're playing offense. We used to always be reactive. Now we've been active. As a matter of fact, we have our election integrity teams that have been deployed in both New Jersey and Virginia over the last 7 months, and in California as well.
Now, you got two governor's elections You have New Jersey, Jack Ciattarelli, and you have Virginia, Miss Sears.
Listen, Jack Ciattarelli is a phenomenal candidate. He's doing everything he can to win. He's neck and neck in the polls. I'm actually doing an event for him this week, and we think that he has a great opportunity to win. And Sears is campaigning every day, hard out there. And listen, what happened in that attorney general race in Virginia with Jay Jones and those disgusting remarks, which really is a disqualifying feature, and the fact that Spanberger and others have not disavowed him as a candidate, has really brought up an opportunity for Sears and all of our candidates in Virginia to play in a competitive environment. That's a very tough state to win, but our candidates are going to do well. I think Jack Ciattarelli has the best chance out of everybody because of the campaign he's doing. And, we have some real opportunities, but we're going to have to close these races strong to be successful.
Does the average American out there realize that common sense is not so common, especially right now in the Democratic Party?
No, and you could see that what's happening right here in New York City. And so what we have to do is we have to shed the light, and that's what the president's doing with his policies. That's what he's doing every day. He's trying to show. I mean, what world do we live in where the Democrats are against, basic law and order? What the president's doing in terms of trying to clean up these big cities. The fact that people are going against him, to me, is crazy. The fact that they're against the tariffs. For years, people always fought, for the working class, and the Democrats used to say, we're going to fight for American jobs. We're going to fight for manufacturing. We're going to fight for the average American. And you know who's doing that more so than any other president in the last 3 decades? It's President Trump. He's the first guy that's been able to attract foreign investment by the billions because of his trade policies. And he genuinely cares about the well-being of others and the well-being of the average American worker out there. But that's what gives us the opportunity to be successful in these, not only the races coming up in a couple of weeks, but the races coming up in the midterms.
Now, I can't believe Newsom in California. I can't believe Pritzker in Illinois. I mean, all the people want is to make Chicago safe.
Look what happened in D.C. I mean,
safest city in the country now, isn't it?
Yes. Well, listen, I live a couple blocks away from our building. There was an intern that lived close by that was mugged a couple of months ago. Unsafe. And then now, I could tell you, I walk to and from my place to our office without any fear. You see National Guard troops. It is amazing. You feel safe. At the end of the day, what do people want? They want to be able to provide for their family. They want, clean, safe streets. They want the safe neighborhood for their kids to play in. And the Democrats are opposing all those policies.
But all that people want is the quality of life. The people in Washington are safer. The people in Chicago deserve to be safer. Don't they want the kids in Chicago, the kids in San Francisco to be safe?
And it doesn't make any sense, but they're playing to their leftist woke base, who's been trying to defund the police for a long time, who has policies that have cashless bail and allows criminals to run rampant through the streets. People want safe streets. They want safe neighborhoods. But it's those type of issues that are going to lead us to victory in the midterms.
Chairman Joe Gruthers, thank you so much for taking over the RNC, and God bless you, God bless America, and please give the president our regards.
Thanks so much, John.
You are listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. If you ever miss a segment or want to hear it again, go to WABCRadio.com, go to podcasts, go to minicast, and play back your favorite segment. With us today is Dr. Peter Michalos. And, Doctor, what do we do? Is there anything new on living warm?
Well, we're going to talk about one of the most important organs in our body for longevity, and that's the heart. And we know that cardiovascular and heart disease and stroke are one of the biggest killers of men in the world, and especially in the United States. So it starts off, of course, it's good to have a decent set of genes and not having a family history of heart disease in your family. But we have to start with the basics, and it starts from early on, how we treat our heart and what we eat because they found atherosclerotic plaques, which are builds up in the arteries in autopsies of people as young as 12 and 13 years old. So we know that having a heart-healthy diet is extremely important, and as we've talked about many times, the Mediterranean diet with fruits, vegetables, legumes, fish, plenty of omega-3s, minimizing carbohydrates, minimizing alcohol, all that is very important. And also now with children, with the electronic heroin of cell phones and video games, they aren't as active. So getting up and moving and being active and getting your steps in helps, because like any muscle, if you don't use it, you lose it. And the heart needs to be trained, and that's why getting active with things like intermittent training, where you can, run on a treadmill, let's say hard for 5 minutes, and then take a rest for 10 minutes, and then run again hard for 5 minutes, because that's what we're really designed to. We're not designed to run marathons, because as we know the story about the ancient marathon, when he ran 26 miles, he collapsed and died. We're really designed to run away from predators in short bursts. So constantly staying active is very important for the heart, maintaining a healthy weight, because if you have a pump and it has to pump through 300 pounds versus only having to pump through 180 pounds, the heart muscle doesn't have as much strain. Stop smoking immediately, because they've shown that smoking and being exposed to secondhand smoke narrows the blood vessels, and those vessels feed the heart. They're called the coronary arteries. So we now know that smokers die 10 to 12 years younger than non-smokers, and that's just a simple fact. We now know controlling your cholesterol, your lipid profile, and when you check your blood test, one important blood test is called the apolipoprotein B, which is the carrier of cholesterol, and you want to keep that between 0 and 100, and they found that to be almost 75% accurate in predicting heart attack and stroke, so you want to keep that below 100. Sleep is very important. We now know that during sleep and sleep hygiene, that's when your body does all the repair, cleanup, and the repairing of all the muscles, even the heart, because the heart is in the resting phase, and you are healing and getting rid of dead and dying cells. And the other thing, of course, is alcohol is only occasionally in moderation, less than 3.5 drinks a week. All the studies have shown that it increases the risk of heart disease after 3.5, and also the rate of cancer, especially in women, breast cancer, as you drink more alcohol, increases. So these are some of the top priorities, and very important is controlling blood pressure, because when your blood pressure is high, the heart has to pump against that high resistance, and it causes something called cardiomegaly, where your heart gets enlarged because it's struggling and saying, I can't take it anymore. So the medicines that help to dilate the blood vessels and relax them and reduce the pressure help. And also when your blood pressure is high, the vessels say, I can't take it anymore, and they start getting narrower, so you get narrower coronary arteries, but you also get narrowing that shows up in the eye. And ophthalmologists are some of the first to diagnose high blood pressure, because they see narrowing in the blood vessels. And if you see it in the eye, it means you see it in the brain. And one of the most controllable risk factors they've shown in large studies with Alzheimer's disease is controlling your blood pressure. So these are some of the basics of heart health for longevity, because you need a strong heart to get through a lifetime of pumping and activity. And by keeping your heart healthy when you're younger, you'll have a lot less problems when you are older. And when your heart gets fed properly with oxygen and good nutrients, you're less likely to have things like atrial fibrillation and heart attacks and arrhythmias. And keeping your blood work in balance, and even your thyroid, for example, hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism can cause arrhythmias like atrial fibrillation. So keeping a good, healthy body.
Understood. And let me ask you another question. Last few weeks, we were talking about a switch in your system, in that turns your body off from letting you live long. Are they getting any closer to finding that?
Yes. Yeah, well, that's what Jeff Bezos invested $500 million in Altos Labs, and Life Biosciences in Boston. Yamanaka in Japan got the Nobel Prize for OSK genes. They found that all our cells have a switch that can turn on the younger software of our younger cells. They gave it to the mice, as we said, who were the equivalent of a 77-year-old, and they lived 109% longer. They've already reversed blindness in mice and apes, and they're doing human trials now. So that's going to change medicine completely. You're going to go in for an infusion, and you're going to get improved heart function because your heart will go back to a younger stage. So this is all revolutionary stuff happening now. People can look up the Yamanaka Nobel Prize for OSK gene therapy and longevity, and you will hear all about it. And we're going to keep our audience updated for these amazing changes that are going to revolutionize medicine in the next few years.
Well, Dr. Peter Michalos, thank you so much for bringing us up to date, and let's catch up again real soon.
Thanks, John, for always getting the truth out. In the future, we'll also talk about how stem cells can help improve heart health, too, in some patients.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Gary Krupp from the Pave the Way Foundation, and he is I'd say he's an intellectual, a historian, and he's there to identify the differences in religion between regions. Now, Gary, we had a discussion the other day, and tell all our audience what you want to accomplish.
Well, thanks for having me, John. I appreciate it. As you know, Pave the Way Foundation is working with the Vatican Library, with the Secret Archives, dealing with these issues. But we came across a book which was written 330 years ago. It was written in 1695 by a cartographer, and it's in Latin. The book is in Latin, and what it did is it's actually the first map created for the region. But his name is Adrian Reland, and what he did was he surveyed 2,500 settlements mentioned in the Bible. And what he documented is that there were almost no Muslims living in Palestine 335 years ago. The Muslims that were there were transient agricultural and construction workers. For example, in Nazareth, there were about 700 people. They were all Christian. In Jerusalem were 5,000 people, with the majority being Jewish, and with a few Christians and so on. So it just blows the entire notion that this is the Palestinian homeland and it doesn't exist, and the Jews are occupiers. Absolutely not true. The Jews have been there for 4,000 years, and this book, as I said, you can get it on Amazon if you read Latin, and it's quite remarkable, and nobody knows about this, quite literally.
And say it again so people can understand what you said, just in case they didn't get it the first time.
Okay. The name of the book is Palestina ex Monumentis Vertibus Illustrata. It's a Latin name, and is written by Adrian Reland 330 years ago, with a detailed census of Palestine, what was known then as the Roman name Palestine. And there were almost no Muslims living there at the time, mostly Christians and Jews. Jews have been there 4,000 years. And so the whole notion of this ancient Palestinian homeland doesn't exist. It never did. And this is a very, very important concept. And you can go on to Amazon if you can read Latin. You can actually read this. And it inventories each of the cities, as I said.
So they have been taking the position that it's Palestinian land, and that's not true.
Exactly. This is exactly
so
the case.
It's been the Jewish land for 4,000 years, and they were just workers and passerbys.
Right, and Christians. In Jerusalem, as I said, there were 5,000 people, majority being Jews, a few Christians. But in Nazareth, for example, were all Christians. 700 people lived in that. So this is an actual census that was taken and a map drawing for the region. So this is a very important concept. But in addition to that, I wanted to mention to you, and you remember this quite well, is that through an Islamic scholar by the name of John Andrew Morrow has uncovered over 50 examples of what is called a fatwa, which is the highest authority in Islam, is Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, and he issued a fatwa 5 years before in 628, which was 5 years before he died in 632. And the fatwa was very simple. He said that he's ordering his followers until the end of days to protect the Christians and their churches and their books and to protect the Jews in their synagogues. Why? Because they believe in one God. They, as we do, they're part of our community. And he warns them. And he says, if you do not do this, I will be there on Judgment Day to judge you. Now, John, if you remember correctly, we did this 11 years ago. And, and I tried to get the Wall Street Journal to print it, Forbes magazine, Newsday, all of the newspapers, the religious, nobody would print the article about this reality. And these documents exist. You can see them on our website, on Pave the Way Foundation's website. You can see the images of these documents. There are over 50 of them. This is the highest. And
your website is Pave the Way?
Yeah, pavethewayfoundation.org or ptwf.org. And it's in the peace section about the edict of the Prophet Muhammad. Most Muslims, and they're wonderful people, who are absolutely petrified of and angered by the illegal use of their religion for violence and so on. This is something they need to know about. It's extremely important.
So somebody has told the Muslim people that they should kill Christians, but that's not. Muhammad said not to.
Exactly. And you can see them. These are translated. You can actually see the images of the documents with the handprint of Muhammad. Muhammad was illiterate, and they had a handprint and a wax seal which showed that he did this. And these documents, there's some in the Armenian archives in Jerusalem. There's some in Topkapi. They're all over the place. But John Andrew Morrow, you should look him up. He wrote the Covenants of Protection of the Christians of St. Catherine's in Mount Sinai. Very, very, very important. And most Muslims don't even know they exist. It's very, very, very sad because they'd rather take some phrases out of the Quran, which may talk about violence. But this was written after the Quran. This is written in 628. It's now saying, wait a minute, these people are not infidels. They believe in one God as we do, and they're part of our community. So this is a very important concept, especially now when we're dealing with this, some of the statements that have been made by these moronic college kids, and stuff going on in the Holy Land. And this is a problem. But these things are available. You just have to look for it. That's the whole thing.
Gary Krupp, thank you so much. PaveTheWayFoundation.org or PTWF.org.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. With us today is the Premier Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario. Well, Premier Ford, there was some talks going on between your Prime Minister and President Trump last week. Can you give us an update on what you think is going on? And are we making progress to having love between our two countries?
Well, John, first of all, thanks so much for having me on. I think there's a lot of love still amongst Canadians and Americans. I think the message we're trying to get through to President Trump is we're stronger together. And, when you look at trade deficits around the world, I understand what President Trump's doing, but Canada is not the problem. The largest contributors to the U.S. trade deficit are two countries, China and Mexico, with a combined deficit of $1.2 trillion. If we take away the oil that we ship down at a discount, the U.S. has a $60 billion surplus. Or if we look at the automotive sector, we buy more vehicles, 400% more than any other country in the world. And I just got a quote here from the Center of Automotive Research, and they found that the tariffs in the auto sector will raise the cost on U.S. automakers by $107.7 billion U.S. dollars in 2025, and the tariffs on the average American will increase the cost of U.S. households by over $2,400. I think that's a conservative estimate. And you've seen what's happening to the manufacturing employment in the U.S. has declined 5 months in a row with over 78,000 fewer jobs than they did a year ago. Protectionism does not work, especially with your closest friend and ally. The easiest way we get the economy moving and we continue being the wealthiest and greatest two countries in the world, just get rid of the tariffs on Canada. We're part of the family. And when we have a strong Canada, you have a strong U.S., and it's the rest of the world we have to take on, not each other. And that's kind of our philosophy. I think the meeting went well. They're building a relationship, and as you know, as a business person, John, and the president knows, and our prime minister, it's about building a relationship and making sure that everyone moves forward in a prosperous way. So that's kind of where we're at.
What he wants to do is try to level the playing field a little bit, and I guess that's open to negotiation. And I'm not privy to the finite details. Are we making progress to making a fair deal for both sides?
I believe we are, but time will tell. And again, I understand what President Trump's doing. When you have a trade deficit of $1.2 trillion with two countries, I'd do the same thing. But it comes down to Canada that strengthens the economy on both sides of the border, and the U.S. does here, and we do in the U.S. I always want to remind our great American friends, we're your largest customer in the world, not Mexico, not China. We buy more products, $356 billion off the U.S. every single year. And Ontario alone, we do $500 billion a two-way trade. We directly employ 9 million Americans. Now, when you go after the auto sector, it's like closing down 6 auto plants because parts will go back and forth 8 times. And we aren't the problem. We buy more autos off the U.S. than anywhere in the world, close to 850,000 vehicles. So we need to get a deal. We need to focus on I call it the AMCAN Fortress, American Canadian Fortress. And we have the critical minerals. We have the energy that you need. We have the uranium and the potash. There's so many things we bring to the table that we can be stronger. Well, China is cutting the Americans off on their rare earth minerals, critical minerals. There's one country that you can rely on, and that's your Canadian friends north of the border here.
Looking forward to having more discussions, and God bless you, and let's catch up again real soon.
God bless America. God bless Canada. Let's work together and get this done. And I appreciate you having me on.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Senator James Lankford from the state of Oklahoma. Well, Senator, where the heck are we going from here on?
Well, I would tell you we are in the middle of a government shutdown. We're going to continue to be able to press to say we've got to be able to have a functioning government. I don't want to be France at this point. If you're following the French elections, they can't seem to keep their government functioning over there. We're not France, and we've got to be able to figure this out and get some Democrats to come to the table.
You see, the Democrats usually get 100% participation. Is any common sense Democrats left?
So we've had 2 Democrats and 1 independent that have joined with Republicans to be able to say we've got to be able to reopen the government. So that's been a good thing to be able to see that movement already. We need about 5 more Democrats in the Senate that would cross over with the other 3 and say, okay, we need to get the government open. We need to have basic operations that are here. So that we're working through that. We've had several good conversations. They're saying that they want to vote on some key areas they want to be able to vote on. We've said, hey, we're a republic. We can vote on whatever we want to be able to vote on. But if you're demanding it has to be your way, America has spoken. They've elected a Republican House, a Republican Senate, a Republican president. So we're not going to cave to your demands to be able to give in to something the American people didn't vote for. But we are very willing to be able to have a vote because that's what this republic's all about. We have disagreements. We put them on the table. We vote them up or down, and then we keep moving. So with that is the biggest difference of opinion right now.
What else do you think American people are bothered? Where do we go?
So there's obviously things happening around the world. I wish we lived in a peaceful utopian planet. We don't. There are evil people that do evil things around the world, and the president's been successful in getting the hostages out of Israel. We're still trying to be able to get the final hostage, those that are deceased, out of Israel, to be able to get them back home, back to their families. But it is a remarkable progress what's happening in the Middle East, and getting leaders that swore not to talk to each other, actually talking to each other and trying to engage in what that looks like long term. There's a long way to go with Putin, who is a dictator thug.
and he is determined he's going to dominate the entire region and be able to rebuild the old Soviet Union. And so he's taken several steps on that in the past decade and a half, and now his focus is on Ukraine to try to go back and retake it as it was in the old Soviet Union. Obviously, the Ukrainian people have no interest in that at all, and they're pushing back on it. The president's called this one of his most challenging tasks on that, to be able to get Putin to be able to stop actually attacking his neighbors. At the same time, you're exactly right. President Trump has an amazing ability to be able to multitask on issues all around the world. He's working on getting India to be able to buy Russian oil, which is funding the war in Ukraine, so he can put leverage on Putin. At the same time, he's putting leverage on Maduro in Venezuela to be able to stop pumping drugs into the United States and facilitating that. Maduro has had for a long time a bounty on his head. He is a known drug trafficker. He is one who is intentionally focused on trying to be able to push drugs into the United States. He is not the recognized leader of Venezuela, but he is a dictator that's taken it by force. And so it is important we continue to be able to maintain pressure on Maduro and on the drug smugglers to be able to make sure they're not pumping all this fentanyl into the United States to kill us and to destabilize us, but to also try to get finally a stable leader for the people of Venezuela. The millions of Venezuelans have left and fled all over the region, including coming to the United States because of Maduro's thug tactics. So if a change happens there, those Venezuelans go home. It's a new stabilization for long-term for South America, and that's a big deal for the entire region.
Energy. It's a big item. Oklahoma is big on energy.
Yeah, we are.
Texas, your next-door neighbor, is big on energy. The previous administration had a war on energy. I mean, how did we exist? How did the Democrats accept what President Biden was doing or his administration was doing? I'm not sure President Biden knew what was happening, but
yeah, it's painful to be able to see, but there's a resurgence of energy around the country. And what's interesting, a lot of these tech companies years ago were saying, hey, we only want to buy wind energy. We only want to buy solar energy. Now they're saying, hey, we just need energy, because they realize there's not enough wind and solar energy to be able to run data centers and all these operations for AI. And so there's been a rush to say, hey, what's a reliable source of energy that's out there? And Oklahoma and other states have raised their hand and said the same one that actually brought America to be its most prosperous point in the entire world, that same source of fuel is still available. You're right, natural gas and oil are at some of their lowest levels in a very long time on it. We are awash in that energy source, and a lot of folks are still pursuing it. Natural gas, you remember back in the 1970s, Jimmy Carter was saying we were running out of natural gas and we've got to shift to something else. Now we found so much natural gas that in some areas of the country, natural gas prices are actually negative at this point because we have so much of it. We can't get enough of it into the pipelines to be able to move it. So that is very significant. Now, again, for the Northeast and for New York and some of the areas that have banned fracking and banned pipelines, energy prices remain high because elected leaders have said, no, we don't want that kind of energy. And what they're doing instead is getting a really expensive energy, while places like Oklahoma and Texas continue to be able to have very low-cost energy. More and more companies are moving to Texas. More and more companies are moving to Oklahoma because we have consistent, reliable, low-cost energy, and we have low taxation, and we have low regulation. So we're going to continue to produce the energy that America needs and that all these tech companies and others are actually looking for manufacturing.
Senator Lankford, we'll catch up with you again real soon. Thank you for your common sense again, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
The Cats Roundtable.
If you ever miss a segment or want to hear it again, go to WABCRadio.com, go to podcasts, go to minicast, and play back your favorite segment. Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. Every Sunday morning, we'll bring you the latest in what's happening in our community, our country, and the world. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a nice Sunday.
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy.
Download and subscribe
at BeBullish.com.